She's properly pissed at her pretentious pharmacometrician for poorly planning, for poorly preparing. For poorly preparing, thus not practicing proper power procedures. This is the defendant, Dr. Jin Jin. She delights in describing difficult data sets. She thinks that distinguished Dr. Mentre is being dramatic in her dogged defiance of her design decisions driving drug development. She is accused of dastardly deeds, as she doesn't depend on D-optimality. The parties have both been previously sworn in.
Bailiff, please swear in both parties.
Yeah, I swore in already, they're good.
Oh, okay. Even the producers are going off script. Dr. Mentre, you are accusing Dr. Jin of poorly planning her pharmacometric study. Please present the evidence in your case.
Jin Jin, I read your report on the population PK analysis of drug FIM used to cure Sara disease. I found the following table in your report, which will summarize your main population PK modeling results. So all of you, if you look at this table, you could see that we have huge relative standard errors for the fixed effects on Ka, quite huge for the fixed effect on volume, and also for the variability on Ka. But worse, you see that there is a decrease of clearance with a genetic effect, which is around 49%, around 50%. But there is a huge standard error for that, so that it's not significant. I think that you really poorly plan your study to get such results. Indeed, if I read more about the study design, I can read that it's part of a phase 3 trial for drug FIM for Sara disease. In this phase 3 trial, 100 patients were included in the treatment group. 50 patients only were included in your POP-PK analysis. The drug was given as 100 milligram BID, and you decided to go to only 2 samples per patient at day 10 at steady state. So half of the patients have a trough sample and a sample of 1 hour, and half of the patients have a trough sample and a sample of 4 hours. So this per se, you could see that you will have a very poor design. And even worse, it's written that one of the objectives of your POP-PK study was to estimate this effect of the slow metabolizer on clearance. You did pharmacogenetics. And we knew that the expected proportion of slow metabolizer is 20%. And you expect an effect on clearance, a decrease of 50%. But you also knew that the interpatient variability on clearance was very large, 100%, from a previous POP-PK analysis in phase 2. So you should have used any population design software, not to do any design optimization, but at least to evaluate your design. And if you do that, and I did it for you, you could compare different design. So the first line here in green is a very nice design where you will have 100 subjects, and instead of 2 samples per patient, you will have 3, trough, 1 hour, and 4 hours. And if you read this line, the RSC on all parameters are small, and the power to detect your gene effect, is 77%. If you go with 100 patients, but only with 2 samples per patient, here you can see that with 2 samples per patient, you have quite high relative standard errors. But even worse, if you look at the 3rd line or the 4th line, and the 4th line is the design that you choose to implement, you have huge relative standard error on volume, on omega volume, and a very poor power of 47%. So the best design would have been the first design, and I accuse you of poorly planning your PK study and losing data and patients.
Dr. Jin, how do you respond?
Your Honor, this accusation is very unfair, and now I will convince you why. Thank you for the opportunity to defend my case. Firstly, I would like to emphasize the primary objective of our phase 3 trial is to evaluate efficacy and safety in the target patient population. PK is a secondary objective, and it cannot be evaluated at the cost of actual patient burden and inconvenience unless absolutely needed. Firstly, regarding your accusation of only collecting 2 samples per subject, this patient's population is rare disease population, and the patients suffer from many pain and immobilities. They either have to be accompanied by their family or caregiver to go to the study site for their study visit. The PK sampling, unfortunately, is a very painful procedure for these patients, and we really would like to minimize these pain to the patients and the family members as much as possible. We actually proactively conducted a survey asking the clinicians and also the patients. And based on these collected feedback, hearing from our target patient population, the team considered actually collecting 2 samples per visit as maximally feasible that these patients and caregivers can tolerate. Most importantly, the unnecessary patient burden and inconvenience may lead to slow trial recruitment, which will be longer trial duration and cost, and also higher risk of patient dropout, which may lead to much higher risk of a failure trial. This will potentially delay active therapy to these rare disease patients, which are at very high unmet medical need, where they don't have any treatment option at the moment. Secondly, regarding your other accusation of only tested included 50 patients in the PK analysis, we actually did intend to collect PK data in all the patients as specified in the clinical study protocol. Unfortunately, at the end, when we get the data, only 50 of the 100 patients have measured drug concentration. When we dig further, 10 of the patients dropped off before day 10, therefore we didn't have any data from day 10. 20 of the patients did not have PK because the sampling procedure was unsuccessful. The patient simply was too painful to endure through the PK sampling process. The rest of the 20 unfortunately have damaged PK samples, either because of improper sample storage, shipment, handling, or assay. Unfortunately, this is what we faced with a rare disease. We implemented the trial in many clinical sites in multiple countries to have a reasonable recruitment rate, but some of these clinical sites are inexperienced and they are especially unfamiliar with PK sampling. So, overall, this was a reality challenge we faced with this clinical trial. If we can please refer back to the accuser's simulation exercise. Judge, please, thank you. I would like to emphasize that the 100 patients design really cannot be implemented, therefore it's not a fair comparison reference point. Comparing the lowest 2 rows, which are possibly more possible to implement, there's really no meaningful additional benefit for collecting that 1 extra sample. Plus, there's really actual patient burden, which the patient probably cannot tolerate. Bottom line, the primary objective of the phase 3 study is for efficacy and safety, and not just to please us for PK. So given these above legitimate reasons that I have detailed above, I plead no guilty for these accusations of poor design and planning because we simply consider patients first. Thank you.
Your Honor, I understand all this operational stuff. It might be true, but as a pharmacometrician, you should better understand the challenge there is when you just collect half of the data you wanted to collect. And you should have worked with a study statistician to run those calculations ahead of time in preparation so that you could, and especially find out the loss of power you get by having only 50 patients instead of 100 patients. You should have used any design software, run those analyses, and then you would have known the impact of losing so much patients, and perhaps you have put more effort in getting those samples ahead of time. And you will put more effort and more money also to get those samples in this clinical site. So therefore, I really urge you, Judge Kowalski, to consider the impact of not doing properly this analysis and to find the defendant guilty.
Judge Ken, can you please give us your ruling?
I think there are valid arguments on both sides. I have some experience in this area, but I'm sure that other industry scientists have experienced similar logistic and compliance challenges to the ones that Dr. Jin has encountered. For these reasons, I would like to bring in the collective experience of a large pool of pharmacometricians and statisticians and send this case to the jury. Matt Zierhut, I understand that you have been selected as the jury foreman. Please distribute the ballots to your fellow jurors and collect their votes. When the vote is completed, please tally the votes and come to the podium to announce your verdict and sentencing. Will the defendant please rise?
All right. We, the jury, on a very close vote, 7-5, find the defendant not guilty. However, we suggest that you visit a clinical site that is participating in a PK substudy to appreciate the challenges, as they are known to not be as well equipped for PK as phase 1 clinical sites. And we also, to potentially avoid this issue in the future, suggest you take an optimal design course and work more closely with your stats colleagues.